According to the Bible, Israel is viewed as God's covenant people who uphold His covenant and are under His protection. Israel-related prophecies from the final days are now coming to pass. What are these predictions, and what is Israel's and the world's significance in them? Christians, Muslims, and Jews all recognize Israel, a Middle Eastern nation on the Mediterranean Sea, as the biblical Holy Land. Most of its sacred locations, including the Temple Mount, the Old City, the Western Wall, and Mount Zion, are located in Jerusalem, the country's capital. Israel is regarded as the Holy Land, and Jerusalem is a sacred city in both Judaism and Christianity. They assert that this is where their faith originated and where it is centered. For Christians, that is where Jesus' life and death are made manifest. Nobody is surprised by the predictions surrounding them in the Holy Book, given their level of significance. The sacred book predicts that certain prophecies about Israel would come to pass when the world comes to an end, heralding the second coming of Jesus. Some of these predictions are starting to come true, right? What do these symbols mean, and what do they mean as signs? Construction of the temple, the first temple, often known as Solomon's Temple, is mentioned in the Bible. On the location of the current Temple Mount in Jerusalem, King Solomon erected the temple to honor the gods. Between the 10th and 6th century BC, it was in existence. During the siege of Jerusalem by Babylonia under King Nebuchadnezzar, the temple was demolished. Solomon's Temple, the second temple afterwards known as Herod's Temple, was built after the first temple was destroyed. It was initially constructed as a simple hall of worship following the Israelites' return from their exile in Babylon. Still, it was redesigned and reconstructed into its original structure, with giant walls and big columns. When King Herod the Great ruled over Judea, after its recreation, it stood for over 580 years before the Romans again destroyed it, during the Roman invasion of Jerusalem. Building the third temple was put forward when the second temple was destroyed. The third temple was to succeed the first and second and be a sacred place of worship for the Jews. The third temple is also significant to the beginning of the Messianic age, but building it seems not simple. Israel cannot seem to lay claim on the land where the previous temples were sent to be built. Each time Israel tries to lay any claim on any part of Jerusalem, they're met by opposition from far and wide. Their capital, Jerusalem, is shared with Palestine, and some countries recognize West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and its east as the capital of Palestine. Due to the location of the Rock Dome, an Islamic monument in the middle of the Temple Mount, Muslims oppose the construction of a third temple. Jews are forbidden from worshiping there and are discouraged from visiting the facility. Additionally, the evidence goes against the Jews' long-held view that no earlier Jewish temples were built there, according to certain scholars. Researchers and academics looked into this issue further and found that the Al-Aqsa mosque was built on a Jewish ritual cleansing site. Robert Hamilton, a British archaeologist, offered evidence to support this. He investigated the mosque's foundations and documented his findings in a paper that he prepared outlining his research. He accomplished this after an earthquake damaged a portion of the mosque in 1927. Under the mosque's floor, he found a mikvah, a bath used in Jewish ceremonial immersion to acquire cleanliness. The mikvah is thought to be so crucial to Judaism that it is frequently erected even before the temple or synagogue. It should be connected to a natural water source so that it can provide living water. It served as a piece of immersion before accessing the Temple Mount during the time of the Second Temple. These discoveries were made some centuries ago, but were confiscated by the British Mandate Archives to prevent upsetting Islamic officials until recently. And now that it's been proven that the previous Jewish temples were built where the current temple sits, the Sanhedrin, which sits as a tribunal for the Jews, has started taking steps for the Jewish temple services to begin soon. Even the farmland and forests are being cultivated to provide for the needs of the temple upon construction. The Sanhedrin claim, although people believe that the sacrifices made in the temple are from the blood and ashes of animals, they attested that the plants grown around the temple and Israel were also used in these sacrifices. Producing a red heifer to purify the Jews so they can participate in temple rites is one of the conditions for reconstructing the temple. It's necessary to combine water and the red heifer's ashes. Rabbi Jane Richmond, an Israeli rabbi who served as the Temple Institute's global director from 1989 to 2020, has a strong commitment to fulfilling the commandment in Numbers 19 to bring back the red heifer without blemish to Israel. Only 9 red heifers were used to purify the Jews between the first and second temples, making their extinction simple. Approximately 1,000 years, a burned-out house and its ashes are clean, preserved, and gradually dissolved in water. A skilled cow farmer who grasped the principles of animal husbandry tried to raise a red heifer under the guidance and supervision of Rabbi J. Richmond and other rabbis from the Temple Institute. Israeli domestic cattle were injected with frozen red Angus embryos from North America. The red heifer cannot be made available without more. Regarding its breeding, there are certain guidelines. It has to be flawless and born in Israel. Additionally, it must not yet have been fastened to a yoke for plow use. Many ancient books were examined to learn more about this, and the results were combined with cutting-edge scientific technologies. In addition, Kohanim, a form of the priesthood, is made to go through temple ceremonies held by the Sanhedrin and the temple movement. To train them on their actions and mannerisms, they were also trained in using the types of equipment of the new temple and offering burnt offerings. The new altar can only be built at the site of the original altar atop the Temple Mount the altar was built, uniquely so that it can be quickly dismantled and reassembled in another location. Once rebuilt at its permanent position on the Temple Mount, it can once again be used to offer sacrifices. According to Orthodox Jews, the only way to solve the issues that the Jewish people and the rest of the world are facing is to rebuild the temple. It's important to remember that the Muslims currently possess the mount and that steps must be taken to retake it, as preparations are being made for the temple's reconstruction. Political activity is required rather than legal action to obtain the Jewish Act. In its conclusion regarding the work being done, Israel's Judicial Council stated that there were more practical means to resolve the dispute than a legal verdict due to the intricacy of the scenario. According to the Bible and in an understanding of Daniel's prophecy, it can be said that the Antichrist in Revelations 13 is the future political leader that would make a covenant with the Jewish leaders to rebuild the Third Temple. International regional organizations state all countries might step in as mediators. Still, we can all agree that if it would be settled, the cooperation of leaders of different faiths must be had in doing this. The proposal of the Antichrist making the rebuilding a reality might be valid, as both religious and political leaders would follow him. As we watch and await the second coming of Jesus, we also watch the unfolding of these events regarding the building of the Third Temple. Christ at Siloam in the 8th century BC, Paul, King Hezekiah, created the Siloam Pool, also known as the Pool of Siloam. The pool was constructed so that Jerusalem would always have water, even if it were under siege by enemies during a war, because it was the only supply of fresh water in ancient Jerusalem. From Gihon Spring, King Hezekiah hacked through nearly 2,000 feet of solid rock. Water flowed from the Gihon Spring to the pool twice daily as the spring generated water. The original Pool of Siloam measured around 53 feet, was 18 feet broad, 19 feet deep, and was constructed primarily of rock and brick. The Pool of Siloam was destroyed along with Jerusalem by the Babylonians. It wasn't until 70 years later when Nehemiah rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem and repaired the wars of the Pool of Siloam. When Herod the Great began to rule, he rebuilt and expanded the pool, and the poor and sick would come to bathe at the pool. The water from the pool was used for a special ceremony during the Feast of Tabernacles because it was close to the temple. In Israel, important events are remembered with feasts. To remind the Israelis of their freedom from Egypt, the Lord instructed them in Leviticus 23, verses 34 to 43, to reserve 7 days to the Lord's for the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths from the 15th day of the 7th month. They were to dwell in booths for 7 days, all native-born Israelis, that their generations may know that they dwelled in booths when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. The festival of booths, also known as Sagat, served as a remembrance of how God saved his people from the land of Egypt and provided them with food in the wilderness. The Mishnah contains directions on how to build the booths to dwell in during the holidays. The festival usually came at a time when the harvest has been completed. People give thanks to God while hoping for better rains. Leviticus 23 verse 40 talks about gathering 3 branches and fruit. The rabbis agree that the citron fits the fruit requirement, and willows, myrtles, and palms can be used as branches. Burnt and sin offerings are also additional commandments to follow during the Feast of Tabernacles. Sukkot, tearing the feast before the morning sacrifice, a priest would take a golden pitcher to the Pool of Siloam, fill it with water, and bring it back to the altar amid the shouts of the people. Then, as the crowd chanted Psalms 113 to 118, he poured out the water on the west side of the altar. Doing this, they portrayed Isaiah 12 verse 3. The Pool of Siloam was hidden for a long time until it was discovered in 2004 while digging a sewer line. Of its 53 feet length, only a tiny portion has been revealed so far. It's believed that in the future, all people will gather in Jerusalem to worship the Messiah. On the most fantastic festival day, the last day, Jesus said that anyone thirsty should come to him and drink, and whoever believed in him would have rivers of living water flowing from within them. Jesus filled the gap and offered water, the Holy Spirit, better than Siloam's waters. By offering the water of life, Jesus identified himself with the rock in the wilderness, that gave water to the Jews. Armageddon, hearing Armageddon, you instantly think of the end of the world scenarios, and you're not entirely wrong. It refers to the time when the government of humans comes to an end. It's when the people and governments who've not accepted the sovereignty of the Lord come together and battle against Him. In the New Testament, Armageddon's only mentioned once in Revelation 16 verse 16:16. The word was used to refer to a place where armies would gather for battle, and various people have interpreted it as either literal or symbolic. It's where the armies of the government of the earth would gather to battle the Lord and His hosts. Once tempted to ask who would try to fight with the Lord and where the battle would occur. By the Scriptures, those who reject His sovereignty, disbelieve in His authority, and treat Him with contempt are His adversaries and would engage in combat with Him. The territory of God's covenant is Israel. The Middle East is where humans are from, and northern Israel is where Mount Megiddo, which people have given the literal meaning of Armageddon, is situated. Does this imply that the Middle East or some other region would host the Armageddon battle? It's not true. Contrary claims are made in Jeremiah and Ezekiel's books. The Armageddon conflict would not take place in a particular location, but rather between nations throughout the earth. It would consist of various nations coming together to battle against God for the final type, rebelling against His authority and dominion. Armageddon translates to her major in Hebrew, meaning the mountain of Megiddo. The area is located in northern Israel and has been the site of various battles in history, some of which are recorded in the Bible. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the thumbs up to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon to receive notifications when we upload more videos to the channel. If you did like our video, please share this video with your family and your friends. For more content like this, share our channel for more information. Thanks for watching.